Hi, I'm Fox San Antonio's Jessica Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our
Treasure Valley communities,
the El Paso, Las Cruces communities,
Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But we are concerned about troubling and irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these stories simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 This is extremely dangerous to our democracy. This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy. I've been told my whole life that I was a storyteller, that I had a voice that just made people want to listen. Naturally, being good with my words, curious about everything, and driven to lead, being a journalist or some kind of investigative reporter was always my path. My plan was always to graduate high school, go to journalism school, and then become one of the big dogs. The problem with that is that the profession has changed quite a bit in recent years. A career that used to be about holding the higher echelon accountable and uncovering hard-hitting truths is no longer. Journalism has become about being the spokespersons for politicians, political movements, and the billionaires who fund these channels. Yes, you heard that right. We'll get there. I was born to be a leader, not a follower. Going into student loan debt to become a liar for the corporate media is not exactly my idea of freedom of the press. I refuse to be encouraged to lie or exaggerate the truth and call that hard-hitting journalism. This field is now about getting the most eyes and being the first to report something, even if it's not true. Who can forget Anderson Cooper in waist-deep water during CNN's live coverage of Hurricane Ike? Except he wasn't waist-deep in water after a storm surge. He was just standing in a pit. Very compelling, raw reporting. Or more recently with the drag bans in Florida. It was widely reported in May that Florida was passing a law that was banning drag shows. Things were so bad that pride parades had to be canceled. But how true is that statement? Well, you scroll down just a little bit and you get to the truth, which says the following. Officials in Florida City have canceled a gay pride parade and restricted other pride events to people 21 years and older in anticipation of Republican Governor Ron DeSantis signing a bill meant to keep children out of drag shows. The article continues. The legislation, which awaits the governor's signature, would allow the state to revoke the food and beverage licenses of businesses that admit children to adult performances. The DeSantis administration has moved to pull the liquor license of a Miami hotel that hosted a Christmas drag show, alleging children were present during lewd displays. To put it in plain words for you, Drag shows in Florida, which I live in, are not being banned. They are being age restricted, just like a strip club or a burlesque show or a cabaret show would be. Age restricted, no banning. Or what about all the trans bans or the laws eradicating trans people? The last few months, all we've heard from the media is how states are banning gender affirming care. And of course, we have the crazy headlines from the media that are meant to invoke fear in people. But alas, again, you read the first paragraph and the truth is always there. And I'm going to focus on Florida for this one because Florida has been a main topic of conversation. Every time you bring this up, when you talk about the states, people always talk about Florida. The first sentence reads, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed bills Wednesday that ban gender-affirming care for minors, as in people under the age of 18, people who are still going to high school and need to be able to attend their classes and can't heal from getting a mastectomy under the age of 18. But let's be honest, how many of us read past the headline? How many of us actually read the articles? We live in a world that encourages a fast-paced lifestyle. We used to be able to watch movies. Then we shortened that to YouTube videos. Now our attention spans are shortened to 15-second TikToks. Every few years, shortened more and more. And when you're not paying attention, it's very easy for you to miss very important things. But there are more egregious forms of what can simply be called fake news. If the news isn't blatantly a lie or exaggerated to fit a narrative, it is used as a distraction to cover up something worse. And in the age of social media, it better be big enough to actually cause a distraction. Let's look at the two most recent examples first. In mid-June, a submersible descending to the Titanic lost contact with its main ship after about an hour and a half. It was a truly scary 4 days, and personally speaking, I could not sleep thinking about these people possibly stuck in the bottom of the ocean. I can't imagine the terror one deals with were they to have actually been alive and stuck at the bottom of the ocean for 4 days. Yet while the news was talking about knocking sounds and the slow decrease in oxygen, the US Navy heard the sound of them imploding the same day that they lost contact with the mothership. We were all led on a wild goose chase for nothing. Why? Well, let's look at the other headlines that were supposed to garner public attention. Joe Biden's son, the son of the President of the United States, Hunter Biden faces federal charges in relation to a criminal tax case. Let's continue. New lab-grown meat approved for human consumption, whose main donor is Bill Gates. Of course, more on him later, but yes, lab-grown meat, grown out of animal cells. Instead, we were all biting our nails to find out if these people died. We were distracted for 4 days, and the government pretended to see nothing, hear nothing for 4 days, while we were all led on a wild goose chase, and these two pieces of information, these two headlines, specifically the one about the president's son, was just completely ignored by the media. And it seems like the media is trying really hard to cover things up for Hunter. Sometimes, if you've ever seen the show Scandal, you have to set certain fires to distract from current ones. Cocaine has been found at the White House. And somehow, the house filled with Secret Service agents is unable and will be unable to find a culprit. If this has no connection to the president's son, Hunter Biden, who has a history of cocaine usage, then I think it should concern us as citizens how easily it is to bring illegal substances into the White House. Makes me personally concerned with how easy it would be to illegally smuggle things into the White House. With the wrong person in power, who knows what horrors and illegal corruption could be going down within the people's house. But of course, alas, a culprit could not be found. Or maybe the efforts to find them were not as intense as we thought they were. So the White House will have a press conference about possible cocaine being found on the premises, but when asked about Hunter Biden, Hunter's laptop, or possible connections to China.
So God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you so very much.
Why is there a voicemail of the president talking to his son about his overseas business dealings if the president has said he's never spoken to his son about his overseas business dealings?
Well, first I'll say that what the president said stands. So if that's what the president said, that is what stands. And
He's leaving a voicemail about a New York Times article concerning Hunter Biden's business dealings, and he says, "I think you're clear." How is that not him talking to his son about his overseas business dealings?
We're not, from this podium, I am not going to talk about alleged materials from the laptop.
So are you disputing that it's the president's voice on the voicemail?
I am not going to talk about alleged materials on the laptop.
Are
it's
you
not
disputing
happening.
Then that it is not?
Peter, I refer you to his son's representative.
There's been criticism that you're still trying to compromise by your family's business relationships. Sir, Mr. President, there is
Give me a break, man.
Did you overreact?
Mr.
President, there's been criticism so long to address overreact on this matter, done because of political pressure.
You can come to my office and ask the question when you have more polite people.
Mr. President, why have you chosen Poland for your trip to mark anniversary of the war? And what's your message? What are you?
Suddenly, nobody is forthcoming. While we're over here worrying about cocaine at the White House, the Pope, Bill Clinton, and Alex Soros got together for a random meeting. Do you know why that might be interesting? Because Alex Soros was given his dad's fortune just a few weeks ago, and he will be the new face of the Soros family. In case it wasn't obvious enough by that meeting with those very influential people. The Soros family, a lineage said to reach into the deepest inner workings of not just our country, but our world. Deep enough to influence both sides of civil unrest, something that has dominated our country for the last 10 or 15 years. And if you don't believe me, which is understandable considering the topic at hand, listen to how this man described himself to reporters who were interviewing him for a Los Angeles Times article. I fancied myself as some kind of god. If truth be known, I carried some rather potent messianic fantasies with me from childhood, which I felt I had to control. Otherwise, they might get me in trouble. It is a sort of disease when you consider yourself some sort of god, the creator of everything. But I feel comfortable about it now, since I began to live it out. This article continues. Soros has proved that with the vast resources of money at his command, he has the ability to make the once unthinkable acceptable. His work as a self-professed amoral financial speculator has left millions in poverty when their national currencies were devaluated, and he pumped so much cash into shaping former Soviet republics to his liking that he has bragged that the former Soviet empire is now the Soros empire. Now he's turned his eye on the internal affairs of the United States. Today's U.S., he writes in his latest book, The Bubble of American Supremacy, is a threat to the world, run by a Republican Party that is the devil child of an unholy alliance between market fundamentalists and religious fundamentalists. We have become a supremacist nation. This interview is from 2004. Note the word supremacist. We hear that word quite a lot these days. And to me, it's an interesting coincidence. Everything seems to be associated with white supremacy. So a man who describes himself as a god had his son meet up with the Pope and Bill Clinton just a few weeks after it was reported that he had died. But that's okay, because we were all too busy trying to figure out whether this lady saw a real person or a reptilian on a plane.
Say whatever you want. I'm telling you, I'm getting the fuck off, and there's a reason why I'm getting the fuck off, and everyone can either believe it or they cannot believe it. I don't give two fucks, but I am telling you right now, that motherfucker back there is not real. And you can sit on this plane and you can fucking die with them or not. I'm not going to.
And whether Hunter Biden is doing cocaine at the White House. We're too busy with the important things. While the world is trying to figure out who the cocaine belonged to, a recently resurfaced 2019 report by the World Economic Forum and its leader brought up some pretty terrifying information. The World Economic Forum says fashion will be abolished by 2030 and humans will all wear a uniform. What else were we too distracted to notice? In April of 2023, Leonardo DiCaprio was asked to testify in court for the criminal trial of Pras Michel, former member of the Fugees. Pras was accused of helping a man named Joe Low, a Malaysian financier, to funnel $30 million to the 2012 Obama re-election campaign using straw donors. Essentially, giving money to others and asking them to donate so that it won't be traced back to him. Interestingly enough, yet another connection the Democrats have to China. Pras allegedly took $20 to $30 million to funnel to Obama on behalf of Low, and you guessed it, the Chinese government. Federal election law prohibits foreigners from donating to U.S. election campaigns. DiCaprio was honest and said that the businessman did indeed agree to funnel a large sum of $30 million to the Obama campaign. DiCaprio stated, "It was a casual conversation about what party he was in support of. I told him what party I was in support of, and he told me that he and a group were going to make a significant contribution to the Democratic Party." He said, noting the donation was around $20 to $30 million. But you wouldn't know that, because guess what was widely reported by the media instead? You guessed it, another episode of the Trump saga. But there's another recent one. On March 27th, 2023, the lives of 3 children and 3 adults were taken at a school in Tennessee. Audrey Hale went into the convent school, a Catholic school, and took the lives of 6 people. For the sake of YouTube, I'm not going to go into detail on the event itself, but I do want to highlight a very interesting detail around the event. A New York Times article reported The attacker who fatally took the lives of 3 children and 3 staff members at a Nashville school on Monday was identified as a former student at the school who the police said appeared to have written a manifesto about the attack and drawn maps of the campus. So what was in the manifesto? What answers can we give to the grieving families to point to what could have happened? Not only that, but what answers can we give to the people in the neighborhood? Because the people in the neighborhood were also very affected by that event. Because they're scared now. They're scared to take their kids to that school. So what answers can we give to them as to why this happened? Unfortunately, we have yet to find out because it is literally being kept secret. There was no push to release the information in the manifesto. Instead, the media was focused on something very, very important: the misgendering of Audrey Hale. And the public bought it and repeated it.
That is a tragedy, y'all. 7 lives.
And if the news isn't used as a distraction piece to hide bigger stories, it is blatantly decided not to report it at all. In 2019, reporters at NBC came forward after NBC, the news organization, allegedly tried to cover up sexual assault allegations against Harvey Weinstein. Reporters claimed that people at NBC went out of their way to shut down coverage on the Weinstein story and then lied about the claims to suppress it. They personally intervened to shut down our investigation of Weinstein and behaved more like members of Weinstein's PR team than the journalists they claimed to be. Now, it's not exactly clear why NBC tried to silence the story, but my guess is when you throw a match on the floor in a forest, it's difficult to predict how far the blaze will burn. Weinstein, one of the most popular names in Hollywood, with friends in the highest of places, being exposed for such dirty, disgusting crimes begs the question: who knew, and why did they stay silent? Could they have been part of the problem? Or is it all just another coincidence that was avoided by the media? Now let's talk about the 2016 election, and you're probably expecting me to bring up the collusion with Russia, but I'm not going to bring that up. That's the conspiracy we all heard from the media. The reason why is because the media was trying really hard to move away from the 33,000 emails that Hillary Clinton made disappear. Hillary Clinton had her mobile devices and servers smashed with a hammer to avoid them being released. Clinton was also accused of using a service called BleachBit to delete her emails from the face of the earth. BleachBit advertises on their website how it can help you prevent file recovery, meaning whatever was hidden was meant to stay hidden at all costs. House Select Committee Chairman on the Benghazi probe, Trey Gowdy, god damn it, that's a mouthful, went as far as to say Clinton's lawyers used a special tool to delete emails from her personal server so that even God can't read them. And I don't know about you, but you would think that a story like this would make major headlines, especially for a presidential candidate. Instead, again, we were all worried about collusion with Russia, something that has been proven factually incorrect. It is literally a lie. It is literally a lie. And listen, I'm not a huge Trump fan. I'm here to tell you, if it was true, I would just tell you it was true. But it is literally a lie. I'm literally throwing up the headlines as you can see. It's a fucking lie. But of course, the information wasn't released until 2019, when the damage had already been done and Trump's image was attached to Russia and accused of colluding with them for the rest of his presidency. But again, no special constant coverage on the hammer-smashed, virtually eviscerated emails of Hillary Clinton. Do you know how incriminating things must be when you have to use a service that advertises shredding files? We will never truly know what was in all of those emails, but WikiLeaks has released some of the Hillary emails, and they're very interesting, to say the least. I'll let you research that on your own, though, because if you know, you know, and I'm not trying to get murdered. But even more recently, with the 2020 election, Trump was again used as a scapegoat for the opposing candidate, the Democratic candidate. And you'd think the Democratic Party would get a little bit more creative. However, again, the Russia collusion hoax was used, and boy did it work. Most presidents get reelected. He didn't, so obviously it worked. The Russia collusion hoax was used to distract from Hunter Biden's very real laptop scandal. If you don't know, in October of 2020, the New York Post ran a front page headline about the contents of what would become Hunter Biden's infamous laptop. The contents of the laptop included the following: alleged collusion between Hunter Biden and Joe Biden with the Ukrainian energy firm Burisma, pornographic images of the president's son with sex workers, images of drug use, random photos of Hunter with children, private text message conversations, and many other pieces of information that has made Hunter and the Biden family not look so good. Just this June, there were 10,000 photos leaked from that same laptop. Saying that they're interesting is saying the least. Joe Rogan talked about this on his podcast, but the actual election was not rigged. The media was rigged to decide the election.
It was a rigged election.
Rigged.
Even if it wasn't rigged.
He's still saying it.
But even if it wasn't rigged, let's say it wasn't rigged. Let's say it was a fair and that's who won and that's how it was going to be. Biden won. For sure, it was rigged by the media. For sure. Just the Hunter Biden laptop case and the Russia collusion case. Just those two things.
Yeah.
Just those two narratives that they knew were not true, that they pushed out in front of everybody, and that we know, had to do with trying to get rid of Trump. That was a big. That is
one over-reporting and one under-reporting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is in many ways. That's
an attempt to
manipulation.
Yeah,
it's manipulation of a public narrative. It's a manipulation of what the people think is real and not real. Everybody thought he was in collusion with Russia. It's what everybody thought. There were just all these mainstream, except Fox News.
Yeah.
They were the only ones. They were the only ones that weren't pushing it. Everybody else was pushing it.
Yeah, it was sold hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was not true, and it's proven to be not true. And then there's the Hunter Biden laptop thing, which they knew was true, and they said wasn't true.
Yeah.
And they told you that they stopped people from sharing it on social media. They stopped people from sharing it on Twitter. Zuckerberg sat in that very chair and said that the FBI contacted Facebook and told them that it was Russian disinformation. They were getting a bunch of Russian disinformation. And so they limited the spread of that.
I've already brought up many distraction pieces, but this wasn't just a distraction. This was a blatant choice to spread a false lie, to hide from a harsh truth. And this was proven. Our FBI was working with Twitter executives to silence the Hunter Biden story on that platform. This was a blatant attempt to silence the story just around the 2020 election. It's widely discussed that Hillary Clinton lost the 2016 election due to the October surprise to re-examine her emails, and they weren't even leaked. Hunter Biden's laptop was. So it can be inferred that Joe Biden would have lost the 2020 election had the story been widely reported. And even if you, by any chance, were able to find information or coverage on the story, most of us were encouraged to vote by mail. So most of us, including me, had already voted by the time that the story broke out. I'm not the biggest Trump fan, but these people very clearly used him as a scapegoat twice. It is clear as day. The first time didn't work, but the second time did. The Democrats in this country, the left, have adopted very similar traits to the early suppressive nature of the Nazi regime. When they're reported on in a bad light, it's overshadowed and silenced with reports of something else. The media will show you this clip of Biden.
Yes. Make us worthy, Lord, to continue to serve, to continue to pray, to continue to walk together.
Yes. Or this clip of Biden.
Mr. President, this is my 221st day of publicly transitioning.
God love you.
But they won't show you these.
It doesn't matter whether or not they're the victims of society. The end result is they're about to knock my mother on the head with a lead pipe, shoot my sister, beat up my wife, take on my sons. To take them out of society, away from my mother, your husband, our families. Lock the SOBs up.
Do you support gay marriage? No. Barack Obama nor I support redefining from a civil side what constitutes marriage. We do not support that. That is basically a decision to be able to be left to the faiths and people who practice their faith, the determination what you call it. The bottom line, though, is, and I'm glad to hear the governor, I take her at her word, obviously, that she thinks there should be no civil rights distinction, none whatsoever, between a committed gay couple and a committed heterosexual couple. If that's the case, we really don't have a difference.
Is that what you said? Your question to him was whether he supported gay marriage, and my answer is the same as his, and it is that I do not.
Wonderful. You agree. On that note, let's move to foreign policy.
Okay.
If somebody is indeed choosing these stories, highlighting certain ones over others, who could it be? Who could they be? Who owns the mainstream media? That's a very good question with a very deep black hole that would probably end in my disappearance. However, there is one individual that you should definitely know about. The doctor who is not a doctor and somehow the expert in all fields, Bill Gates. Most of us are aware of his alleged long friendship with philanthropist Jeffrey Epstein. But most of us aren't aware of how truly influential this man is. He isn't just a philanthropist and a human rights activist. Oh no, he is much more than that. An angel, truly. Bless his heart. Bill Gates, among other things, has a very close hand in influencing our media. In fact, he spent at least $319 million funding media projects. Projects for news organizations that somehow always seem to be reporting very positively on him. Organizations like CNN, NBC, NPR, PBS, and The Atlantic. George Soros also widely influences our media. And during the time of both the 2016 and 2020 election. But that definitely had nothing to do with influencing our elections, right? And it's not just Gates and Soros. Those are individual people. It's also BlackRock and Vanguard, the two most popular investment firms. Do me a favor, try it. Search any company and look at the top 3 holders. It is usually going to be both of these firms either back to back or again within the top 3. Don't believe me? I understand. Here's a few. But don't take my word for it. Research more companies and comment down below what you find because I know that you're going to be shocked. If you pay the people who cover the media to speak a certain way, you become the journalist, not them. You get to choose exactly what gets covered. Paying a university to train me to become a billionaire-funded CNN reporter? I might as well just get a regular corporate job. And it's not cheap either. The price to become a liar is expensive. You're looking at about $30,000 a year in tuition fees. And that's, of course, for a community college. If you want to go to one of the Soros-funded Ivy League colleges where you can train to become a leftist extremist, it's much more expensive. Columbia Journalism School offers a tuition rate that's about $86,000 per year. You can pay $86,000 to become a corporate-sponsored repeater, like in the intro video. And you can do it at Columbia University, which George Soros has donated to. Lots of influence there. In just 2020, this man donated $63 million to universities. If you fund the schools, you can easily choose what is taught in the schools and how it's taught. It's just common sense. Like those kids who get into Ivy League schools because their parents paid for a library to be built on the school premises. Or even just a few years ago, where it was proven that if you are a celebrity, you can quite literally pay for your kids to get into an Ivy League school. It's that easy. How can I expand my mind and cover hard-hitting pieces when I have the mainstream media blinders on? If I'm trained to speak a certain way, if I'm paid to speak a certain way, manipulated with the oldest trick in the book, money. Where's the integrity in that? We journalists, especially investigative journalists, and yes, I call myself a journalist, are supposed to be the philosophers of society, not the mouthpieces. Leave that for the politicians. That's their job. We're supposed to be holding them and the higher echelon accountable. It starts at the universities, a place where free thought used to roam rampant since the dawn of time, now just an indoctrination factory. A place that favors and rewards only far leftist values. A study was done by the organization The Conversation, and when asked the question about how many times did you keep an opinion related to class to yourself because you were worried about the potential consequences of expressing that opinion. And as you can see from the chart, the majority of people who felt they had to sit down, shut up, and be quiet were those labeled conservative. The overwhelming majority of conservatives felt they had to police their speech due to social repercussions. Even claims of inappropriate, offensive, and disrespectful comments towards conservatives ignored and normalized. Students, even those who identify as liberal, acknowledged hearing such comments directed at political conservatives far more than at any other group. And you see these numbers, and it's easy to ignorantly say, oh, this is just a bunch of racists and homophobes being pushed into silence. No, it's not. I'll remind everyone that this isn't the 1920s anymore. And even if it was, the Democrats were actually the racists back then. The Democrats loved them some white supremacy. And the first 23 African Americans in Congress did belong to the Republican Party due to the GOP's support of voting rights and the Democratic Party's embrace of white supremacy. So when people are saying that transphobia is white supremacy, and transphobia could simply be accidentally misgendering someone, anybody who doesn't agree with child mastectomies or pumping kids with drugs used to castrate pedophiles is a conservative. I was born in Cuba, and I'm gay. But I don't agree with this either. I'm not exactly the white-hooded Southerner you were expecting, right? It's safe to say that things have definitely changed, and the media, and those who pay for it, have had an extended hand at doing so. Nobody should be forced to speak or act a certain way. We should all be advocating for freedom of speech and freedom of the press. Like they said in the opening video, this is extremely dangerous to our democracy. And it's only going to get worse with the rise of AI, a world where anybody can say anything. Imagine an AI version of the President of the United States declaring war on China. Falsified, leaked conversations. Imagine how easy it would be for the opposing political party to tarnish the reputation of the other and swing an election in the coming future. I am not alleging absolutely anything in this video, but I will ask you something. At what point are there too many coincidences? How many does it take? When will the world choose to put on its sunglasses and see the truth? See the world for what it is. Would you like the blue pill or would you like the red pill? I always dreamed of being a journalist. I always dreamed of having a job of high importance at the New York Times, but I can't say I ever dreamed of being a liar with a degree. I will be myself until they place me in a fucking coffin, even if it means putting a target on my back. We pay an eternal price for being evil people, and I'm not just talking about God here. Whether you believe in Allah, Jesus, reincarnation, at one point, we will all pay for our decisions. Even in death, none of us are exempt. Make good choices, because regardless of religion, there's one thing I know conclusively. None of us know what happens after death, so we might as well make some good choices. All right, y'all, that's all I have for you today. If you like this video, please go ahead and give me a like down there. I will assume that you subscribed already. If you haven't, what are you waiting for? And as I always say, if I pissed you off, please leave a comment down below. It helps with the algorithm. I'll see you on the next one.